Now, the current state of the world, it is very easy, right, to be very cynical. Hopefulness is the warrior emotion. It is what gives you strength and power. And yet, when Boyenslat was 16 years old, he went swimming in the ocean and discovered all that plastic. He decided to do something about it. 13 years later, he is the CEO and founder of the world's largest ocean cleanup. So I can look at the reality, I can say, this is what's going on, and then shift your mind to what are the solutions, right? What's the way power? I love that word. Not just will. I've got willpower. I want to do something. The way power. What's my way power? How will I?
Namaste, everyone. I welcome you all to Yes Talks. The title of today's talk is Inspiring Hope, Utilizing Hope for Positive Change in Today's Chaotic World. We have a special guest today as the speaker, Ms. Margaret Hepworth. Let me start by giving a brief introduction for her. With over 30 years in education, Margaret is an energetic and passionate peace educator who is all about connecting with students and adults to make a lasting impact. She has worked with thousands of young people and teachers, leading intercultural and global citizens workshops around the world. She brings key principles like ethical leadership, inclusivity, belonging, conflict transformation, and intercultural understanding to life in a way that feels real and practical. Margaret also pioneered the positive reality methodology, helping students embrace creativity and critical thinking. Welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for joining us. We are truly honored and so delighted to have you with us on the Yes platform.
Oh, thank you so much, and namaste to you all. Thank you so much. Yes, what an amazing acronym. Yoga, education, and spirituality. What a beautiful sort of confluence of those three to almost create something new. And thank you, Dr. Ramesh, for having me, and Arunima, and of course my very lovely friend Nithya, who I've known for many years now. I have travelled across India, I think 5 or 6 times now, working with a group of Indian teachers, Education Today, Society Tomorrow. So they believe that in values education, and they believe that how we teach young people today will, come to full force in the years that they step out of school and into society. So I have an absolute love of India. I've been to Auroville. I was just noting there, and I've been to Sri Aurobindo's, I think it was his family home. So thank you. On thinking today, inspiring hope, it's such a huge topic. I often begin speaking with young people and saying, isn't it amazing that over 2,000 years ago, people were talking about a better future, a better society, education with values. Isn't it wonderful that 2,000 years later we've achieved all of that? And of course, they sit in stunned silence going, what is she on about? And then I ask them, if you look out across the world today, have we achieved that? In the space of 2,000 years, where are we now? So I want to begin with this idea that currently we do feel like we are in, I think chaotic is an understatement. Maybe later on when we all get to share, you could share your feelings for what is going on in the world today. And I think this is why I think hope is such an important piece to hang on to. So if you think that hope is fluffy and a bit, not much substance to it, oh yeah, we could talk about hope, great. If that's what you think, or you think, oh, it's a religious thing, I hope by the end of this hour that I've kind of proved you wrong, that you have a much deeper understanding of what hope is, how tangible it can become, and how it really is a very important tool right now for all of us to bring into our own lives, and in whatever way we practice and relate to others, to allow that ripple effect of hope to spread. All right, I'm going to try sharing my lovely screen here. We all know how these things don't work when you want them to. Can we all see this now?
Yes, yeah.
So, inspiring hope, how can we utilize hope for positive change for a brighter future? This is my incredible team who I work with. Currently work with a group who we go into schools, bringing a very diverse cultural and faith group, and we look at breaking stereotypes. We look at racism and prejudice and how they can become agents of change. You can see and feel hope in that picture. I always say to my team, you need to flood their minds with hope. So just even looking at that picture there, I think you can see quite a range of cultures and faiths. Melbourne, where I live, is currently the most multicultural country in the world. And Victoria, the state I live in, is the most multicultural state. So, I mean, for me, I think that's quite a claim. I want to begin with a ritual that we all take part in here in Australia. It's called an acknowledgement of country. This is acknowledging the First Nations custodians of our country. You'll see here my two very good friends, Uncle Shane Charles, a Yorta Yorta elder, and this is Auntie Marilyn Merm Duff. They bring Aboriginal knowledge into schools and for adults as well. So we always begin by saying, in the spirit of a new understanding of reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge the First Nations custodians, the traditional custodians of this country where I'm now sitting, this being Wurundjeri country and neighbouring Boonwurrung and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nations. And we pay our respects to their elders of the past, who still sit all around us, of the present, and emerging leaders into the future. Now, I'm just going to ask you, why do you think when we do an acknowledgement of country here, that might bring a sense of hope? At any point in time, please feel, to use the chat and pop things in the chat. And Aaron, I might get you to read those out if people are writing in the chat. For me, this brings an incredible sense of hope. Australia has a shocking history of racism against First Nations people, 250 years creating a genocide in this country. Why this gives me a sense of hope is because now we begin our important meetings by acknowledging them, by acknowledging a sense of pride that these are the people who have carried respect and acceptance, relationship, responsibility for the country for 65,000 years. So what I'm trying to say to you, why I find this hopeful, is our attitudes are shifting. Now, that right there is crucial to what we're going to talk about today. When our attitudes are stuck in a state of prejudice and discrimination, right, we have behaviors that cause real problems. When our attitudes shift to understand that traditional knowledge, in fact, enhances scientific knowledge. And when you bring those two things together, you almost are creating a whole new entire, this one person I know calls it a species of knowledge, right? Moving beyond where science can take us and opening up our minds to something far more expansive. Now, I'm pretty sure if you're into yoga, education, and spirituality, I'm pretty sure this audience probably understands what I mean by that. So I'm finding this incredibly hopeful. So coming to this idea, is hope something wishy-washy? Or is there a strength and a power to it? I'm going to play you this little clip. This man, his name is Nick Cave. He's an iconic Australian singer, and he sings very sort of somber songs. Sometimes they're quite dark. But this is a piece he spoke about hope on the Stephen Colbert Show. So let's listen carefully to what he says.
So the question, someone has written in, called Valerio from Stockholm, has written in saying, following the last few years, I'm feeling empty and more cynical than ever. I'm losing faith in other people, and I'm scared to pass these feelings on to my little son. Do you still believe in us, human beings? So this is the letter that I wrote. Dear Valerio, much of my early life was spent holding the world and the people in it in contempt. It was a position both seductive and indulgent. The truth is, I was young and had no idea what was coming down the line. It took a devastation to teach me the preciousness of life and the essential goodness of people. It took a devastation to reveal the precariousness of the world, of its very soul, and to understand that the world was crying out for help. It took a devastation to understand the idea of mortal value, and it took a devastation to find hope. Unlike cynicism, hopefulness is hard-earned, makes demands upon us, and can often feel like the most indefensible and lonely place on earth. Hopefulness is not a neutral position. It is adversarial. It is the warrior emotion that can lay waste to cynicism. Each redemptive or loving act, as small as you like, such as reading to your little boy, or showing him a thing you love, or singing him a song, or putting on his shoes, keeps the devil down in the hole. It says the world and its inhabitants have value and are worth defending. It says the world is worth believing in. In time, we come to find that this is so.
It's a beautiful, deep piece of writing. I'm so glad this is being recorded because people will be able to go back and play that several times, I think, to really pick up everything that's being said. He invites us to move from contempt and cynicism of this world. Now, the current state of the world, it is very easy, right, to be very cynical. And he asks us, he says, the world is crying out for help. And so he shifted to a place of hope. And I love that phrase that hopefulness is the warrior emotion. It is what gives you strength and power. And then he goes on to say, well, how do we bring hope? How do we do it? And did you notice what the answer was? It's in the little things. It's in the little things, the things you share with your children, giving time, right? Presence. That's probably the main, just giving time to people when it matters. He doesn't go for some big answer. He talks about devastation in his own life. He lost a child, and he says it was through devastation that he found hope. And so it's a big question, I think. Do we need to have something devastating in our lives to find hope? I'm not so sure that we do. I can see how that occurred for him. I can see that in the current state of the world at the moment, we are feeling quite devastated. So let's keep going. Whoops, why is this? There we go. So here's a question for you all, and you can put the answers into the chat. If there was one thing you could change in our world, what would that one thing be? So just have a real quick go at this and you just shoot out an answer, what comes to the top of your head. If there's one thing you could change in our world, what would that one thing be? While you're writing, I will, you'll note that I've got the words global citizens, global humanity, and wisdom leaders sort of framing that question. I often look at leadership in the world today, and I do question. I don't want this to become political at all, but I do question that there are world leaders. Should they really be called leaders? Something that we teach young people is wisdom leadership. You know, what's the difference there? So let's just see if we've got a few answers in our chat. I'll see if I can find them. So hope's a tool for changing their narrative and their lives in their minds. That's beautiful. Yes, no war. I think perhaps many, many, many millions and billions of people are saying that. No discrimination. Living in communion with nature and other people. And that is one of the things we learn from our First Nations people, how to be more connected. One thing to change, overcoming obsession with oneself. Absolutely. And no war again. We're very aware that if you want change in this world, change begins with me. If I want peace in this world, if I want no war, I need to find that peace within myself. So this becomes really interesting. When we ask young people in schools this question, they give very, very similar answers. They'll say poverty, war, conflict, prejudice, racism, all the isms. And when we ask them, well, what is the one common denominator for all of those things? They'll sit there and they'll go, human beings. Sometimes they'll say human ignorance. And I think, yeah, you are wisdom leaders already. So if we look at ourselves, look at this idea of global citizens and this word humanity. For me, it gives us a sense of hope when I can sit here in Australia and I could be talking with you in India and we can be sharing and discussing and, you know, growing, expanding our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. That gives me a sense of humanity. And that sense of global humanity gives us all a sense of hope for the world. So the idea that we're not operating as just a single, yes, I'm Australian, I'm very proud to be Australian, but I also operate as a member of humanity. So global citizens, we're building hope towards the global humanity. So how on earth, if you're saying no war, no problems within us, obsessing with ourselves, no prejudice, how do we actually solve these problems? Racism, othering, war, climate change is a big one. How do we actually build inclusion and social cohesion so everyone feels they belong? And my argument is that hope plays a crucial role in this. Of course, there's many other factors, but hope is crucial. Finding our sense of purpose and meaning, what allows us as human beings to psychologically survive on Earth with all of its pain and drama and challenges, is a sense of purpose and meaning. I think I'm speaking to the converted. I'm sure if you all belong to Yes, you're all very, very aware of this. And Whereas we find our sense of purpose and meaning, again, the cracks open. The cracks in that pain and that drama, that it opens through, and this sense of hope shines through. So what I want to do in the short time that we have together is look at two things. One is this methodology of positive reality. It is so incredibly simple. It is not something you've got to go away and learn. You can pick this up right here, right now, and we'll just have a little practice together. And then I want to look at transformational learning. Is it true? Is it real? Where does hope come to play in both of those things? If we want to see change in the world, how are we going to do it? So one of the major problems in our world right now is that young people, and I've got to say pretty much most adults I know right now, are actually facing overwhelm and negativity. And when you're sitting in a place of overwhelm, it's very, very hard to move out of it. People tend to wallow in it. You'll notice that people get stuck in the scrolling, and they will read endless accounts of what is going on in the world right now. They will begin their day with it, and it will set the tone of their day in a very despairing way. Positive reality is a very, very, very simple methodology, and it simply says that we can shift our students' attitudes. Remember, I talked about that before, our attitudes changing from overwhelm and anger and angst and frustration. Now, we know all of those things can cause real spikes in very negative behaviors. It can lead to drinking, to drugs, to all manner of things, right? Or depression, that real sinking feeling. The minute we become very solution focused and we are not turning our backs on the reality, we're not pretending these things don't happen. We're not saying, oh, spend all day, every day just singing songs and having a lovely time. No, we need to know there's a war happening. We need to know there are parts of the world, in famine. We need to know that climate change is still an ongoing issue. So that's the reality. The positivity is to bring yourself and young people or adults into this very solution-focused place. And when you can do that, it brings a sense of hope. And what happens, and I've seen this happen in the space of 20 minutes, they literally shift to this belief that change can happen and that they can be agents of change. They can be part of the solution. So let's give this a go. This question said we're going to use climate change, we're going to use the ocean pollution. Where is the biggest garbage patch in the world? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You would like to say surely it would have to be sitting on the outskirts of some of the biggest cities in the world. I'm not sure if you realize that the population of Mumbai is the same as the population of the whole of Australia. So our entire population is in one city in India. So yes, there's going to be a lot of rubbish created there. But of course, I think you probably all know the biggest garbage patch in the world is in the Pacific Ocean. So this idea of positive reality is to say, well, we can't ignore that. We're going to look at that fair and square as a problem. And sometimes I would play them a video such as this. I'm only going to play this for a few seconds.
I've been walking in the same way as
I'm just
did.
pausing that purely in interest of time. If we had so much more time, I'd play the entire clip. But when you watch that, and already just that tiny little bit, and again, you could put this in the chat. The question is, how does that make you feel? So it goes on, it talks about statistics, it talks about the Great Ocean garbage patch. It's the size of Texas. It's huge. But the main question here is not the facts. We know the facts. The question is, how does it make you feel? So if you'd want to put a quick little note in the chat, how does that make you feel? If anybody's, yeah, there you go. Sorry and sad. Thank you. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. It makes us feel really, really sad. People will often say, it makes me feel guilty. And I say to them, look, it's okay to feel guilt for a short amount of time. But if you stay in that guilty place, you'll stay in that wallowing place and it will get worse and worse. So we need to shift everyone to this sense of solution-focused and mindful action. So we're going to look at this. So there's the reality, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, absolutely shocking. Every country in the world contributing to this. Oh, thank you. That's a beautiful comment. I'm going to read that one out later. I'm going to ask, does anybody recognize? You can put your hand up, you know, in the reactions there. Does anybody recognize this young man? Mostly the answer is no. Mostly people they don't recognize his face. And when I say his name is Boyan Slat, they still have never heard of him. And yet when Boyan Slat was 16 years old, he went swimming in the ocean and discovered all that plastic that we were looking at in the previous video. As a 16-year-old, he decided to do something about it. Initially, people laughed at him. 13 years later, he is the CEO and founder of the world's largest ocean cleanup. So let's look at this. Oh, sorry.
and we see that about 92% of the plastic isn't microplastic but is large. Those 8% of plastic that are already microplastics, they used to be large objects as well, but because of UV lights, it breaks down into these smaller and smaller pieces, becoming harder to clean up. Why it's so important that we are cleaning up this garbage patch.
So how did that one make you feel? Again, we've got facts there. We're seeing things. They are saying they can clean the oceans by 2050. Clean the oceans. How did that one make you feel? Just pop it in the chat there again. Yeah, thank you. Wow, that is an absolute wonderful answer. It certainly does make you feel wow. If you see there, so recent updates are that they have a program called the 30 Cities program, and that they have cleaned up 50 million kilograms of plastic out of the ocean. They're now doing it by stopping, putting things across the rivers and stopping the plastic ever even going into the oceans in the first place. And I love these answers. It is immensely positive. And there's that word hopeful, and that you want to believe. And I love this. When you want to believe, you will become mindfully active and courageous. Absolutely. This is sheer bravery and tenacious to keep doing, to not let this go. Now, here's another really big question is, how come none of us know who he is? They've been doing this for 13 years now. How is it that we don't know his name, and yet we know the name Kim Kardashian? We know many other names. What we're looking for, I think, in this place of hope, right? It's the adversarial, the warrior emotion. It takes guts and determination to do and achieve something like this. But in doing it, it inspires hope in others. Simply showing this video inspires hope certainly in young people, but also adults alike. I am so curious as to why the media does not show this young man's face more often and does not share what it is that they're achieving, but that's a whole nother question. So if we look at today's world, that is today's world, but if we look at some of the other issues you mentioned, things you'd like to change, how can we apply positive reality to help alleviate stress and fear and instead inspire hope? Now, if we had more time, we would, workshop this, but I'm just going to answer this fairly in brief for now. You guys might like to go away and talk about this at length. Positive reality. I think a couple of you said one thing you would like to see change in the world is war. If we acknowledge the war is happening, wars are happening. So that's the reality. How are we sitting in our homes, little me, supposed to help that situation? One thing we can do is to help alleviate stress and fear and bring in a sense of hope for the future. Now, how do we do that? Certainly in our classrooms at home, we often do it by talking about, what you can't stop that war. But what you can do is create strength and community and belonging right in front of you. in this classroom? How do you ensure that every person in the room feels they belong? In your sporting communities, what can you contribute to help every person feel they belong? I am very, very sure that just the yes community, the fact that you've built a community, that in and of itself will help alleviate stress and fear. It gives people a place to go, to talk, to share, to, say how they're feeling, and it will inspire hope. I read this quote the other day on Facebook. See, Facebook's good for something sometimes. And it says, the most radical act isn't burning down a system, it's building something that outlasts it. So I just scribbled that onto a piece of paper. I was so impressed. It's building something that outlasts it. You are building community through yes. You're building the type of community that you believe your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren should have that sense of safety and feel they can belong. So well done to you. I know we're always running out of time. I want to quickly move through. Hope is an active, agentic, and courageous conviction that we can create a better future. Hope focuses on what we can do. Hope is a motivation to act. It's not just sit there and say, oh, I hope this happens. It motivates you to act, often requiring willpower, like we just saw with Boy on Slat, and way power. That's the how, finding the way. Hope acknowledges the harshness of reality, yet chooses to work towards a better outcome. Let's keep going. I just want to move you through. Hang on. Here we go. This is all about how do we deepen our contemplation? How do we instill hope? So the question is, can education really be transformational? Is it true and real? Doesn't that sound a bit far-fetched? And the answer for me, through my experience, and I have traveled across the world, so to India, Pakistan, China, Indonesia, Fiji, you name it, working with young people. And I've seen where things land. I've seen young people have these amazing aha moments where their thinking really is quite transformed. So I'm going to ask you this. We could ask a question like this. Why are you here? Right? And why do we do this type of work? Why did you create the Yes community? What's that all about? And that's a really great question. Why did you join the Yes community? So that's a common reflective question, really checking in. Why am I here? What's my genuine intent? And if we used Einstein's theory of why, we could keep going down and down and down and down, and your answer would become more deeply contemplative as you went. But for now, we're going to ask, sometimes do we need to ask a different question to elicit a deeper response? Is it possible that the question can be transformational, not just the aha moment that comes afterwards? So who or what in this world currently brings you hope? Just stop and have a think about that for half a minute. Who or what currently brings you hope? Really important to focus in on this, because why? What is it about that person or that event or that thing that impacts you? For me, very recently, I don't know if any of you saw this on the news, it was a group of monks. They're Buddhist monks. They live in Fort Worth in Texas, in America. And when a country is in crisis, they decide to walk. They call it a walk for peace. Did anyone see this on the news? I was fortunate enough to see it day. These monks simply walk in a straight line, 20 of them. They walked 2,300 miles in 110 days. They did not ask for anything. They expected nothing other than they were walking for peace in a meditative journey. I want you to watch what happened in America as they walked.
Make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying if you care enough for living. Make a better place for you and for me. You make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying if you care enough for living. Make a better place for you and for me. You make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race.
20 monks walking, 2,300 miles is walking from Mumbai to Delhi and back again every day, 110 days. They walked in silence, they walked breathing and meditating, and their only thing was that if they met some people along the way, they would share what they were doing, why they were doing it, and they would share their way of bringing inner peace to their lives. What happened was that word spread. Social media alerted people their pathway, their journey, and you can see the impact that this had on local Americans. So we could ask, well, why were they walking? And they'd say, well, we're walking for peace. The country is in crisis. We are walking for peace. And we could ask, well, what did it achieve? And you'd say, well, they walked into Washington and the impact was enormous. By then, thousands of people had come to join them. In actual fact, through social media, they reached 7 million people. 7 million people engaged in how they brought inner peace into their lives. But here's another question for you. I'm play this because you look at the impact that they did not ask for, they did not expect.
Let the hearts awake slowly. Here's relief. Together we walk. Here's relief. Together we step by step in harmony. Step by boundless in harmony. See boundless compassion. Never cease. Let together we walk. Never cease. Together we walk for peace.
What they brought was the biggest sense of hope to these people. But here's and you'll notice they even impacted the local police, the local military. But here's the transformational question. Not just what did they achieve, but why are people becoming quietly undone by monks who are just walking? What is it that people are yearning for? So I'll just read you a tiny little piece that was written in a Facebook post again. No microphones, no slogans, no anger dressed up as righteousness. just human beings in robes, step after step, breath after breath, and somehow it's breaking us open. Strangers stop their cars and cry. People walk alongside them for a few minutes and feel lighter. Others follow their progress online like it's a lifeline. Some don't even know why they're emotional, only that they are. This pilgrimage isn't trying to persuade anyone. It isn't demanding agreement. It isn't asking you to believe in anything at all. It's simply embodied peace moving through a world that has forgotten how to rest. And our nervous systems recognize that immediately. We are overstimulated, overworked, over-argued, over-notified, and deeply, painfully undersoothed. So when we see slowness, when we witness discipline without aggression, when we encounter silence that feels safe, our bodies exhale before our minds understand. These are just some of the quotes that came out from people responding to, what happened when they saw this. I love that response there. The word, yeah. The emergence of spiritual awakening globally brings hope. Thank you. That's absolutely beautiful. And the biggest change and transformation comes from silence. As I said, I already know I'm speaking to people who have these wisdoms, but isn't it wonderful to sit and reflect on these together? So how do we bring this level of resonance to young people and very, very importantly to ourselves? Now, I think Aranima will pause there just for a minute and have a little bit of Q&A time.
Yes, sure, we can do that. Yes.
Yeah. So if anyone would like to unmute themselves or if you'd like to turn your videos on, that would be lovely too. I'm very, very open to all manner of questions or a little story if somebody wants to share their own little story. As long as we're mindful of time. Has anyone got anything they'd like to ask or contribute? Nithya, away you go.
Hi, Margaret. Thank you so much for this. The story that you shared about the monks, that reminded me of something I read in a book, and I thought I would like to share it.
Yes,
So the book is called Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. And I think it's one of the most heartwarming books out there because it helps you stand your ground in a world which is going left and right. And, if you are not on my side, then you're not my friend, that sort of world. And how can you still have your own values? So there's this one example where she's recalling this memory of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. So there was this shuttle which exploded shortly after it got launched, and 7 astronauts died. And she recalls being in a car, she's driving, and then she notices that, there's something unusual happening on the road. She notices that a lot of drivers have parked their car on the side of the road and are focused on the radio. And this is back in the, I think, 80s, sometime mid 80s, I believe. And they're listening closely to the radio. And there are truck drivers and other drivers who have their head in their hands, visibly upset about something. So she switches on her radio and she listens to, okay, what's going on? What's the news? And that's when she finds out that, the shuttle has exploded. So, and the reason why those people were so upset, because I don't recall which city or which state they're talking about in the US, but they do the reason why they're so upset is because it's not just another incident happening in some other part of the world. It's their hometown where the shuttle exploded. So the people who would have worked there, people, the astronauts, they would have been people, they would have known, or, friends of friends, people who worked to launch that, all of, so they're people, so, it's a little more personal. So,
Yes.
and they did something after this, they did something which was not planned, just like, what you shared about the monks, it wasn't really planned. So each of them got back into their car, random drivers on the, on the road, on the highway, they got back into the car, and even in broad daylight, they had their headlights on.
Yeah.
So everyone started switching on their headlights as a way of mourning, so it's like a shared mourning, a collective pain that you're going through.
Yes.
So I think that sort of, touches me. That sort of gives, the kind of hope that in that moment, you don't have to think about whether this person votes the same way you do or not, whether this person eats the same way you do or not. It's just collective pain. So, that's sort of the thing, which I understand about hope is it has to be either, a collective pain, which brings people together, or a collective celebration, collective joy, which brings people together. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the second one too, collective joy.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good example. Thank you, Nithya. It's an example of complete strangers, right? Suddenly coming together. That is that sense of humanity that we're talking about. What we're looking for. I remember when that shuttle exploded. I remember how shocked we all were. What we're looking for and what those monks created without even asking. As I said, they are not influencers. They're not trying to get, 2 million likes. That's not what they're all about in any way, shape, or form. So I think we've got to stop looking at influencers and start looking for our inspirers or our inquirers or our seekers or, something else entirely. What happened with them was I found myself writing a note in Facebook, right? This is who I am. This is the work I do. I had replies from people in Norway and Spain and across the world, right? It was a sense of global humanity that was growing. They mapped where all the different countries, 7 million people across the world responded to this. Now, we can ask ourselves, okay, a month ago they walked into Washington and thousands of people came and listened. What has happened in that month in the world, right, is a whole nother level of, I'm loath to say the word that comes to mind. So some people might say, well, what was the purpose? What did they achieve? Well, you know what they achieved, and I think, again, you would all understand this. 7 million people found a way to find inner peace. 7 million people found a way that when things got worse, they could still hold fast. They could still find hope. They could still stay calm and help their families stay that little bit calmer. They can look at fear and understand that fear is used in this world to control and manipulate and drive certain behaviors. So they come to understand things better. But here's a really, really interesting question. I read a creation story, Indigenous creation story, and it talked about a woman who held fear and in one hand and hope in the other. And I'm really curious to know, can you be in a state of fear and in a state of hope at the same time? Can you find a way to bring those two things together? And so that somehow that hope transforms your fear, or somehow that fear helps give you that that motivation to do something more, right? To take more mindful action. All right, I'm talking a lot. Have we got any more questions or any more stories or anything anyone would like to say, comment?
Hi, Margaret. This is Ojaswini. It was really, really nice to hearing you. My question is like, let me quote a very famous saying of the mother: "Never lose hope. Hope is a divine quality." So, that is, I mean, really, hope is a divine quality. I would say that everyone is hopeful. Nobody is born hopeless. But as we move on, become hopeless due to several reasons. So my question is how to keep hope sustainable.
Yeah, yeah. That is a wonderful question. And I think you're right. When we look at children and their sense of hope or their sense of joy and creativity and even their more expansive thinking, right? It seems to get squashed as we go. For me, the answer is in literally practicing some of the things we've talked about. If you go away and you just ask yourself, where can I apply that sense of positive reality? Right? I can look at the reality, I can say, this is what's going on, and then shift your mind to what are the solutions, right? What's the way power? I love that word. Not just will. I've got willpower. I want to do something. The way power. What's my way power? How will I find that way forward? So to make it sustainable, it's all about your own attitude, right? Your attitude has to shift from I'm going to wallow in this big mess to actually there are people in this world doing absolutely incredible things. The media doesn't tell you about them. The world leaders don't tell you about them. But there are ways of finding them. And that's really mostly through social media, right? Or other access points online. So I would say to make it sustainable, each and every one of us has to step up and become part of that process for ourselves and for others. Yeah. Anyone else want to say something?
Dr. Bijlani, sir, would you like to share your thoughts with us, please?
Thank you, Margaret, for an extremely timely session. When it was planned, we didn't know that it will come at a time when there is one of the worst wars we've had in recent decades going on. And
Yes.
certainly, this was a very timely message to give hope when things are far more chaotic than they have been for so many decades.
Yes.
Thank you also for all the compliments that you paid to the Yes community. And you asked how it was created and why it was created. It wasn't really created, it created itself.
Oh, really?
If one has to thank, one can thank the COVID pandemic, because it was during that period that we needed an online learning platform.
Yes.
And then the divine will coincided, and half a dozen or so youngsters materialized who helped let it happen. Arunima was one of the first ones to join, and Nitya and Ojaswini, who have joined today a little later, and some more have not joined this session but are a part of that community, you said. And of course, all those who have been attending the talks, visiting our YouTube channel, in a way, they are becoming a part of that larger community. And I'm sure there are many more who will discover it, discover this community and join us. And basically, we are focused on the youth because they are the hope for the future. And they are the ones who have that purity, which was talked about, that how is it that we make hope sustainable? Because so easy to lose it. Cynicism and contempt are far easier, as was brought out in your presentation, than hope. So how do we sustain it in spite of everything. Whether it's hope or whether it is humor or whether it is an essential basic goodness, we find that it is found much more in children than in adults. So probably one simple answer would be that uh, we just don't grow up. We retain our childlike character
Yes.
instead of uh, taking pride in becoming grown-ups and mature. We that maturity is only a sort of a euphemism for losing some of these qualities and becoming a more sort of mature or pragmatic and so on and so forth. These are euphemistic ways of looking at losing some of those essential qualities.
Absolutely.
Really grateful for also bringing to the notice of everyone this remarkable young man who, at the age of 16, decided on this enormous project. And he not only then decided on it, he had the willpower and the way power, and he has a vision of what will happen by 2050. So
Yeah.
that really raises a lot of hope. Hope is something which, in fact, resonates very well with the DS community because we have been inspired by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And they gave us sort of not only hope, but also a certitude that the world is going to change and we are in for a better world in the very near future. And they had both logical and spiritual reasons for it. The basic thesis was that consciousness is evolving. Consciousness evolution has the process of evolution has not stopped, and further evolution will be primarily evolution of consciousness, and that is what will eventually change the world. And we are finding more and more evidence of it, as one of the viewers, Sumiti, wrote in the comments that the vision of that spirituality becoming a worldwide phenomenon is a very hopeful sign. And that is what they had visualized, that the world will gradually move away from an ego-centered personality to a love-centered personality, from all religions towards spirituality, and so on. These are the types of relatively visible changes that we'll see as a result of this shift in the consciousness, which in turn will wipe out the basic problems of human existence and give us a better world. So thank you again for this presentation, which gave a new, contemporary, rational, and hopeful sort of perspective to this vision, which we share wholeheartedly with you. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I love that everything you just spoke about, and I am finding more and more exactly what you just said, more and more people speaking of spirituality and that shift in consciousness, that understanding of connectedness and oneness. We might not hear it from our world leaders, but we're hearing it at the grassroots level. So, Aramina, can I just show, I'm just going to show one lucky last picture, if that's okay. I won't, this. I'm going to teach you a new word. The word is despair. It's an obsolete English word, but let's all start using it. It means a return to hope after despair. And so I'm hoping that after today, we will all return to that place you said, that childlike wonder, that childlike capacity to be in that hopeful space so that we can sustain this as we move forward to a much brighter future. I have written it's a children's book for adults. It's called The OK Fray, and it very much is about how we come out of this weary, wandering state of hopelessness, where we find people living, how you can actually do that. It's a children's book for adults. I'll let you know when it's published. Thank you so much again to all of you. Yeah.
Thank you
Wonderful.
so much, Margaret, for such an inspiring talk. And as Dr. Bijlani also mentioned, it's striking that you chose this topic some time ago, and yet it turned out especially relevant today as we hear increasingly, troubling developments around the world. And thank you for giving us so much to reflect upon.
Thank you.
Before we close, let me quickly inform that the recording of today's session and all our Yes Talks are published on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. You can visit the channel and explore vast content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like psychology and wellness. And you can also join us on our Instagram and Facebook handles.
Beautiful.
Thanks once again, Margaret, and thank you, participants, for being with us today. We'll close today's session now with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.